Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 23rd. It is 7:26 PM. This is a regular meeting of the Town Council. Will everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, all members of Town Council are present. Persco, Kohut, Maurer, Lapellis, Formicella, O'Rourke, Wales, and Duva are in Town Council chambers. Kevin Reed is here remotely. All right, moving on to item 3, public hearing. The Town Council shall conduct a public hearing for the purpose of receiving public input on exempting municipal property from zoning regulations. Before we move to the general public, I'm going to throw this to our first selectman and the town attorney for a presentation. So, first selectman, do you have anything to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, there's an issue of unfinished business. This resolution 24-060 to consider and act upon a resolution regarding exempting municipal property from zoning regulations did not make it out of LNA. There was a lot of questions. Obviously, I'm in that meeting. I had a lot of questions for the town attorney to clarify, as well as some citizens had some questions, and the council people in LNA. So at this point, I would defer to the town attorney to answer those questions that were asked, and take it away, Mr. Lito.
Would members of council prefer me to speak from the dais? Is that easier? So you don't.
You're fine.
My head.
You're fine where you are.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yep.
I'll try to turn a little bit. I always feel so rude. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As everybody's aware, I did present some limited information on this to LNA at the last meeting, and I was asked through LNA and subsequent through the first selectman's office by members of town council to address some questions relative to the proposal to exempt municipal property from zoning, from our zoning regulations and subdivision regulations pursuant to 8-2 of the Connecticut General Statutes. The questions were essentially what other municipalities, or some examples of other municipalities that have done so, and I'll report on that. There were other questions about limitations be imposed upon the or in conjunction with the resolution, such as time limitations and other limitations. And I will also touch upon that. So first, with respect to the municipalities, I want to thank, right from the outset, our state representative, Tony Scott, and his team up in Hartford for helping me and assisting me with providing information that helped me be responsive to your questions. Through State Representative Scott's office, he did provide me with a list of municipalities that the state has information on that did follow the same exemption. And they did kind of run down, for lack of a better way to present it, the last OLR report that I did present a copy of to this council, which was kind of dated from 2002. So in that regard, what we learned is there's a couple of ways that towns utilize the exemption process. The first that we're considering is through the legislative body pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 8-2. The other way could be through an ordinance as well. And in addition, each planning and zoning commission, through its planning and zoning regulations, various regulations can provide exemptions within those documents as well. The municipalities locally that I polled, town of Trumbull, sometime in the 80s, it was unknown. We couldn't, through research, couldn't determine quickly when they passed the resolution to exempt the town of Trumbull from the zoning regulations, but it's believed, I did speak with Attorney Shopik, it's believed. His statement was that for as long as he could remember, the town of Trumbull's been exempt. I think the authorizing statute was passed sometime in the late 60s, so it could have been that far back, but he believes it was sometime in the 80s. As an ancillary question, I think I was asked by a number of individuals, including Mr. Maurer and Ms. Persico, to determine whether there are any issues with the passing of those statutes, and Trumbull did not report any issues, that they had no problems, no complaints. There had never been an issue come up where they've utilized a waiver or lack thereof and had any problems with it. I did speak to Newtown as well. Newtown has kind of spot exemptions within their zoning regulations. They did not have a blanket exemption. I spoke with other municipalities as well who some of them were interested by the existence of the regulation. I mean, the ability to use the statute 8-2 to exempt the towns, but that for the most part, the towns were essentially exempt from the local regulations in one form or another. With respect to an actual list that was provided through OLR, including Trumbull, towns of Deep River, East Granby, Kent, Meriden, Newington, Somers, Tolland, Clinton, to name a few. And then there were a number of articles that were presented for other communities that believed to have also utilized or considered the exemption. But there was no way to confirm, we weren't able to confirm that in that time period. There were no reported issues, no known issues that I could, that I can report back to this body as to regrets or other complaints regarding the process as a whole. With respect to the authority of this body to limit the terms and conditions associated with the exemption, research revealed and supported by OLR and through Representative Scott's office supported the research that this body can limit in time the exemption. So for instance, if you wanted to time limit the exemption for a period of 1, 2, 3, 5 or more years, you could certainly do that, months, days, whatever this body felt appropriate. And any other limitations they felt were appropriate also could be included, except for the fact that the exemption would have to apply to all municipal property and exempt the municipal property from all of the regulations. For purposes of what's being presented to this body, we've limited the exemption to the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations, and it would exclude everything else. Well, something else that came up in LNA, so it would exclude building code, inland wetlands, fire, health. Ms. Gallagher brought up a number of other provisions, stormwater regulations, various federal regulations that would also not be exempt, such as FEMA, floodplains, deep, things of that nature that may apply. And we also looked into the application as to whether the exemption would affect the historic district regulations, and it would not. Those would also be exempt. Because the historic district regulations are a creature of statute and ordinance and it's statutory authority, state statutory authority that gives the town the right to enact them. There's a process by which they had to be enacted. And in order to exempt the town from that, from those regulations, you would have to follow the town would have to follow the same process that they did upon adoption, which is essentially the individuals that are located within the historic district would have to vote to remove themselves from the, to repeal the ordinance essentially. So this would not exempt that review as well. We also discussed 824, which didn't come up last time. Everybody knows that Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 essentially in summary requires that should the town want to develop, relocate a road, develop a property in any way, shape or form, sell, lease, abandon property, locate or extend utilities on public property, publicly town-owned property, then it has to have a referral under 824 to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission would consider that request, and they would either vote affirmatively or negatively. And this, if it was negative, this body would have a veto power over that by a 2/3 majority vote. So that process remains intact and in place. It doesn't do anything to usurp that process at all. The other thing that, again, I just wanted to make it clear to this body is that, the process for making recommendations to this body for as long as I can remember has been through the first selectman's office. And this recommendation is a recommendation that came from me in conjunction with Ms. Gallagher and land use as the planning and zoning administrator in reviewing and discussing the application of the regulations to municipal property, it was determined that this would be provide the most efficient and cost-effective way for the town to move projects forward, such as the current project that it's considering with St. Jude. And I think, it was important. I want to make it also clear that I don't believe, it's not my opinion that it's absolutely necessary to do this in order for St. Jude to happen. There are ways that that project will get done. In fact, it's gone down that road already. By no means is this being presented to this body as an oversight or to in any way, shape, or form help patch up any deficiencies in that process. That process is its own independent process. The reason why it was presented is because in my years here as chairman and a member of town council and as town attorney, it's come up on a few occasions at various times, but there was never an opportunity to really take a hard look at it to see, how it would apply to the town. And so, I thought, and land use agreed with me that, and Gallagher agreed with me that, now that we have some good factual data to understand the application and what it does to certain municipal projects, that it would be a good opportunity to bring this to council now so that you can consider it both now and in the future with some relevant facts. So I just wanted to clear up the air that it's not being presented for that reason. It's being presented because it's another measure to increase effectiveness, efficiency, cost effectiveness and efficiency. With that, I think I've answered the questions that were presented to me. If I haven't, I'm certainly open to answering any questions that I can and to further expand upon my presentation.
Thank you very much. So I will just remind council, this is the public portion of the meeting. There will not be a vote in this specific agenda item. We will have our normal motion and discussion later in the agenda. So now I'm going to open it up to members of the public, specifically those members who are in town council chambers first. Is there any member of the public that would like to participate in this public hearing? Okay, please come down to the microphone, name and address for the record.
My name is Paula Kelly. I reside at 290 Cottage Street, and I have lived here for 23 years. I am concerned at the notion that municipal property would or could be exempt from zoning regulations. To quote Frank Leo, memo of April 1st, 2024, quote, in an effort to maximize municipal efficiencies, close quote, impinges upon the residents' interests. Zoning regulations are designed to protect the residents' interests. This is all in the name of maximizing municipal efficiency. The residents' interests are more important than efficiencies. We have a right to have a public hearing on everything in town the town wants to do. Don't give away your rights. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution states the right, quote, to petition the government for a redress of grievances, close quote. I am most decidedly against this exemption. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there any other member of the public that would like to participate in this hearing that's here in town council chambers? No, yes, no. Come on down, name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Samantha here at 5 Sunrise Terrace, Monroe. I guess I'm just going to put the question out there. The various towns that were mentioned that have enacted this, and Mr. Lead said that there haven't been any negative comments. I'm just wondering what, at the end of the day, the positives of this would be, and if anyone has claimed whether or not they have experienced a big difference in the efficiency levels.
And I also wonder, obviously being an attorney, you know this more than myself, but does this in any way, shape or form open the town up to some liability, if landowners or town residents were to sue?
I did not, there really wasn't a lot of feedback in either way from the municipalities that were provided to me through OLR. I did have a good conversation with Trumbull, being a friendly neighbor, and, more close to our area, but there was really no feedback, positive or negative. I think some of the communities, or a couple that I spoke to, did, how do I say this? They appreciated the ability to maneuver in a more cost-effective manner, because again, there's a lot of expense that goes into the drawing and the application process and all the various, and again, most municipal development that we have in our town exists on already developed property. It's not as if, there's a whole lot of vacant open space that this town is intended, and I think that says the same for the communities I spoke to, where they weren't constructing large municipal projects, which were new development. They were trying to redevelop, already developed parcels for community centers and schools and things of that nature. So I don't believe that there wasn't really any negative feedback. I asked, was there any general public negative feedback? I didn't get any responses to that. From a positive standpoint, it was more of a general, I can't point to specifics, but it was more of just increased maneuverability and effectiveness and cost savings because of the various drafting that's required. Not every town has the ability in-house to do the things that are necessary with projects like the one that we have. The other question was litigation, I think. And I think the answer to that is no, because it would be an exemption. And so I don't think there would be any issues. But with respect to the checks and balances that are in place, one of the things we talked about is the 824 process, which is statutory, which if the town does want to do something to develop a property, it does have to go to planning and zoning for their approval, and then would come back to this body. So that's an opportunity to go there and make sure that there are no unknown grievances or grievances from the general community. But to answer your question specifically, I don't believe in any way, shape, or form it exposes the town in any greater form than it would without. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, so obviously, respecting the reach out by the community and council members in LNA, as a selectman, I felt it important to me to do, more due diligence. I did meet with Planning and Zoning Administrator Kathleen Gallagher today to ask her how this would impact her role and what would be the benefits or the negatives. And she had some, aside from the bigger picture, she also had some smaller items that could benefit. So Kathleen's here tonight. I don't know if you'd be willing to speak. I'm sorry for calling you out. But if you'd be willing to speak on those items that we spoke about earlier, I'd appreciate
You
it.
don't have to give your address, just your name.
Thank you. Kathleen Gallagher, Planning and Zoning Administrator for the town of Monroe. EMS has recently reached out to us. They would like to put up a sign at their building. However, they want it to both be an identification sign as well as a way to communicate to the community in town. Unfortunately, our zoning regulations are very strict related to signage. And we don't have the availability to give them the type of sign that they want. If they wanted to go for a variance, we're now potentially setting precedent that we would be allowing a signage up to that size and standard for a commercial property or something of the sort. And so we don't necessarily, and I don't think they have hardship that we would be able to really lean upon. And this is something we would like to give them. We would like to give them a sign that allows them to communicate with the property. If this were to be passed, that's something we'd be able to work with them for. Again, they still have to get a building permit. They still have to go through that process. But as it relates to the size of the sign, we would be able to give them a slight increase to be able to give them the opportunity to communicate to the community.
Thank you very much. And Kathleen will be here for our consideration if there are any other questions she can address. I think that's
I'm
everyone.
sorry, I didn't hear you. It sounded like you were laughing. Could you say that again?
Sure, Kathleen will be here when we decide, when we vote on what's gonna happen. Thank you. I don't think there's anyone else here that's participating in the public hearing. I'm moving on to those who are here digitally. I do appreciate members of the public using the raise hand function. So that is helping me out quite a bit, which is very nice. And so I see a user with the name Cindy Ambrosi has his or her hand raised. I'm going to recognize that person. Name and address for the record, please. I see you are unmuted, but we cannot hear you. Sorry, we still cannot hear you. If you are here, if you've called in, it's *6 to unmute yourself. If you are here via your computer, cell phone, tablet, it's you gotta select you put the microphone with the line through it now. So I don't think we're gonna be able to hear you. So maybe deselect, all right, try now. All right, so I'm going to pass this member of the public right now. I will return if that individual can have their microphone work. So I am going to move on from that individual at this time in the interest of collecting more public input, but I will make a note to myself to go back.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
if I may just note for any members of the public who happen to be having mic troubles or anything like that, one solution, and as we come back to you, would be to call in
Yeah,
on the phone.
Yeah, try using the number.
So that you're in, at least from the vocal standpoint on that. And so that person might be able to do that.
Oh, wait.
Let's give it a test in general. It's Kevin Reed. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so
Yeah, we can
All
hear
right,
you.
so it's not the Zoom.
Yeah, no. All right. So I will give the phone number. It is 1-929-205-6099. That's 1-929-205-6099. That number is available on our agenda. I will also give the meeting number. 893-2342-3545. That's 893-2342-3545. Password is 467-898. That's 467-898. All right, Charlie Coos or Cuss?
It's Coos, thank you.
All right, sir, you may participate.
Thank you. My name is Charlie Coos. I live at 18 Whispering Pine Road here in Monroe. It's over near the Stevenson area, and I've been here for 30 years. I haven't got the whole story here, but in general, my concern would be that if we have a blanket where you can do pretty much what you want with a municipal property, does the public have any recourse here to those changes? Let's just say on my street, Whispering Pine Road, we have what's called, I think, a greenway project, which means open land next to my residence. That, when they built the subdivision here, as I understood it, was to remain not buildable. But if something were to change here and someone were to say, I want to build a cell tower here because it would serve the community better, would I have any recourse on something like that? Because I sure wouldn't want to see a cell phone tower there. That's just one thing. And the second I'd like to ask is, I appreciate the comments about efficiency. Everyone is looking for that. How much is this actually going to save if you have the ability to kind of, have a blanket over this to make it exemptions or whatever? How much is it saving?
Thank you very much, sir. All right, moving on to Caitlin Bartholomew. Your hand is raised. Please remember to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, thank you so much. My name is Caitlin Johnson. I live at 7 Shoals Road over on the Stevenson side. So zoning laws, as we know, are in place to allow rational planning to occur within towns and cities. They determine what kind of structures can be built, where we can build them. They protect the health and safety of the residents in the community, which includes the population of wildlife that I believe the majority of the town residents would like to protect. As you all know, being in public facing roles, perception is everything. And to be frank, this application feels as though the town would like unchecked freedom to build however they wish. I would like to have a greater understanding as to why such a broad scope of approval is necessary. Why should municipals be entirely exempt? That doesn't grant much ability to residents to have a say in what goes on. And respectfully, I struggle to believe that planning and zoning, with all the building that they're currently pushing through the community, would push back too hard against municipal applications.
All right, thank you very much. All right, is there any other member of the public that would like to participate? Please remember to unmute yourself. Oh, 1 second.
Yes,
Hold on 1 second. This is, I'm recognizing, what's that? Oh, man. 2180216. All right, name and address for the record, please.
Peg Kelly, 38 Downs Road, Stevenson.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. What's your name?
It's Peg Kelly.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi. I don't think that the planning and zoning should have all this power. Number one, isn't that just opening up a back door for all these developers to come in because planning and zoning says, okay, yeah, we'll like that. I think that this town people should be allowed to vote for things that affect them, not just what the town wants to do.
All right, well, thank you very much. All right, is there any other member of the public that would like to participate? I see someone has unmuted. This is cell phone. Yep, let me just read the number to make sure everybody knows who I'm talking about. 727-2481. You're recognized. Name and address for the record, please.
Leon Ambrosi, 464 Hammertown Road.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering was this brought to planning and zoning at all?
Do you have any other statement?
Well, no, I was just wondering because I would just want.
So Mr. Ambrosi, this is your opportunity to speak on this matter. It's not a question and answer period. But if you have questions, you can pose them and we'll write them down. And then during our discussion, we can discuss them. So do you have any questions or comments?
Okay, go ahead. What'd you say? Hello.
Mr. Ambrosi, you can continue. You can give your comment or ask your questions.
Yeah, when the town's attorney, Frank Lito, was talking, he said there's two ways to do it. That there would be, it could be a partial or it could be a full exempt. And I was wondering, what is a partial and what is a full exempt? If you can find out that question for me. And that's basically what I have to say, is that I think that it should go to planning and zoning, so planning and zoning could take a look at it and then see if it's going to be a good fit for the town. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Moving on. Is there any other member of the public that would like to participate this evening? Please remember to unmute yourself. Star 6 on your phone or the microphone with the red line through it. Please deselect that microphone with the red line. All right. Do we have someone? Is there a Wellner that would like to, last name Wellner, that would like to participate?
Hi, yes. Can you
Oh.
hear me?
We can hear you. Just name and address for the record, please.
Okay, thank you. This is Audrey Wellner, and I'm at 33 Downs Road in, Stevenson. Yes, I think that there needs to be more public opinion on this. As far as the town goes, the progress is become, greater than when I came here over 50 years ago. And I do think that there's just too much freedom in this, and we need to look at how the town is forming and where open space is going to be, and in order to protect our own properties too. But I do think that this needs to be looked at further, and a public meeting needs to be held on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any, I see someone is listed as J-E. Please unmute yourself. Name and address for the record. Yep, go ahead.
Jen Aguilar, 32 Surrey Lane. I'm just catching up on all of this right now, and I just wanted to voice an opinion of how are we doing this without going to planning and zoning at all? How are we doing a planning and zone? I realize that we went to the planning and zoning department, but being that Leon Ambrosi is on the planning and zoning commission, I'm unclear as to how this can happen without having the commission or the board, the planning and zoning board, have any say in it, and without it going to them. That's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there any other member of the public that would like to participate?
Yes, please.
Okay, name and address for the record, please.
Kelly Hengis
That's
Carano.
really unbelievable that they're going to change planning and zoning.
Ben, you're not muted.
Oh,
Sorry.
Please remember to mute yourself when your time has finished, please. Thank you. Go ahead, miss.
Thank you. This is Kelly Hengis Carano, 19 Shoals Road in Stevenson. I would like to see the town vote on this as well. I believe that people need to be more educated about what's happening in town. And I would also like to know which properties in particular started this discussion. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Is there any other member of the public that would like to participate? Please remember to unmute yourself. All right, hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to close public participation for this public hearing. All right. There are no objections. I'm going to pass the consent calendar as presented. There are no objections. I'm passing the consent calendar as presented. I ask that communication items A through D be incorporated into the minutes of our meeting. Moving on to regular public participation. Is there any member of the public that would like to participate this evening?
Slowly, and we can't understand you. Could you repeat that, please?
No, that's fine. That's fine, ma'am. Is there any member of the public that would like to participate tonight?
That's what you wanted the public to participate in.
It's general public participation, ma'am.
Okay, I got it now.
Great. Is there any member of the public that would like to participate? Hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to close public participation for tonight. There are no appointments this evening. Action item A, Town Council Committee on Finance, Education, Health, and Public Safety Matters. Madam Vice Chair.
We have not had a meeting.
Thank you. Town Council Committee on Planning and Zoning, Public Works, and Park and Recreation Matters. Member Duva.
We actually did meet tonight. It was fairly brief. There was not a whole lot to report.
Okay, no reports. Thank you very much. Item C, Town Council Command Legislative and Administrative Matters. Councilmember Reed.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We did meet tonight. We discussed the matter that was brought up in the public meeting, which is the exception to planning and zoning as well. And that obviously reached a consensus. That's we're going to be talking about it tonight. And then we discussed one item of new business, which is a karma document that Mr. Rooney will bring us through, I am sure, when we discuss it, make a motion.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item D, Strategic Planning Committee. We have not met since our last town council. We previously met on capital projects, and there were a number of questions asked during that subcommittee meeting, including purchasing fire apparatuses in this fiscal year as opposed to next fiscal year. There was consensus on that item. All of those concerns brought out in strategic planning were discussed with the Board of Finance at our joint capital meeting, which occurred last week or the week before. And so all concerns were addressed. There was consensus on purchasing this 2 fire apparatuses this fiscal year and bonding for such this fiscal, or having a bonding resolution approved this fiscal year, as well as considering an additional one depending on certain factors. But those were discussed at strategic planning, as well as our group meeting with the Board of Finance previously. Moving on to item E, Open Space Preservation and Acquisition Committee. Councilmember O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have not met since our last meeting.
Thank you. Item F, our first selections update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is the first time I'll be able to speak in front of such a large crowd. So thank you, everybody, for joining. It's nice to see the community getting involved. Operations update, town hall staff, the planning and zoning staff, as well as the fire marshal, met with representatives of OpenGov, a software that can redesign and streamline operations throughout town hall. The program was well received by staff, as we will have to have future meetings, and ultimately, if decided it's a good fit, will be brought to this council. The cost is about $55,000 per year. However, it opens opportunity for kiosks for cursory permits. This software is currently used by many neighboring towns such as Shelton, Reading, and Trumbull. 55 towns have moved to OpenGov in Connecticut. More information will be supplied to this council in upcoming months. Our staff will be visiting municipalities to observe the operations of this software in real time. On public works news, Stevenson Firehouse replacement project is about 90% complete with only skylights remaining, and the Stepney Firehouse roof is in the beginning stages. The drainage for Arbor Road, Barton Road, and Rygate Terrace has been completed, are in line for paving. Emergency services update. Actually, this is kind of a council update, but Brown Greer PLC opioid settlement, which this council has been very deeply involved in. The town of Monroe received another $2,300.61 in settlement funds, added to the funds that I have reported in previous councils. Capital projects update, Pepper Street. After lengthy review with town directors, town engineer, and our liaison, the project for BL Industries is significant. Holdup is a component needed for the traffic signal facing Pepper Street on Route 25. It appears the mechanical device needed to interface to change the light is not available. Therefore, the project is struggling to get to significant completion required by the state. Community update. I visited Fairway Acres. As this council knows, there's been concern with leadership there. I have visited to see the condition of the housing, and it seems many things need repair and cleaning. It is spring, so hopefully this deferred maintenance will be taken care of through the upcoming months. Penguin Plunge. Although I could not attend this year, I believe you did, Councilman Mauer. Thank you for representing. Attend this year, the police department conducts a Penguin Plunge for the Special Olympics. This event was held April 13th. It had many attending to partake in the cold water event. Once again, thank you to our police for being so community orientated. In a quote made in the Monroe Sun, the event raised in the area of $40,000. And just finally, Making Bones movie premiere, Monroe native and short film producer Joey Ambrosini had the grand opening of his new short film, Making Bones, at Monroe Social this past Friday. I attended with my wife Nadine and office assistant Megan Morley. This event was complete with red carpet, live interviews, and a number of other short film directors, actresses, and actors, wishing our Monroe native Joey Ambrosini future success in his film production. I will say, if anybody does go to watch it, it does have some adult moments. So that is my update, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that's it for First Selectmen's update. We have no other action items. Moving on to item 9, unfinished business. I move the town council adopt resolution 24-060. Whereas pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, section 8-2, the town of Monroe, through its Planning and Zoning Commission, has established, adopted, and prescribed certain zoning regulations in and for the town of Monroe. Exclusively town of Monroe zoning regulations and land subdivision regulations of the town of Monroe. Whereas Connecticut General Statutes section 8-2E authorizes any town by a vote of its legislative body to exempt municipal property from the regulations prescribed by the zoning commission of such town. Whereas municipal property means any real property belonging to, held in trust for, or for the benefit of, or leased to the town of Monroe, located within the boundaries of the town of Monroe and used for a public purpose, including without limitation, buildings, structures, public rights of way, easements, real property used for cemetery purposes, and whereas the town of Monroe is the legislative body in and for the town of Monroe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, section 8-2E, the Monroe Town Council hereby exempts all municipal property from the regulations through and including June 30th, 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Enid Lapellis. All right, it is my motion, and I will address the two changes from last time. During discussions in LNA, it was brought up that there were concerns related to certain regulations that were being potentially excluded from municipal adherence. And that was not to be the case. And so including was removed and exclusively was added. I would ask that some of those items that the town is still bound by include fire, building, health, historic district regulations, watershed regulations, inland wetlands regulations, and I would ask our planning and zoning administrator if she knows any others, and I'm sure she does, to just please express those for the record.
Stormwater regulations are governed by state regulations, locally enforced, but still state regulation. Obviously, federal regulations, which include things such as FEMA, Army Corps regulated wetlands, flood zones, things of that nature.
Thank you very much. And again, the town would still be bound by state and federal regulations. The town does not have the power to waive or exempt itself from state or federal regulations. And again, all those other regulations that I stated before will be, the town will be bound by. This specifically lists Monroe zoning regulations and land subdivision regulations. Specifically, it does not contemplate waiving any other type of regulation. The other change in the language of the resolution that was in our meeting packet for our April 8th meeting was that there would be a termination clause to this resolution, meaning that this resolution will cease to be in effect June 30th of 2025. So it is a year and a couple months in effect. If the town council at that time chooses to renew it, it can do so. However, if the town council takes no action, it will expire after June 30th of 2025. The reason for that is it will give the town ample opportunity to review and see how exempting itself from our zoning regulations and land subdivision regulations have impacted the community. And so this was a necessary protection added to the resolution that I believe would be important for the community as we continue, as we would live with this exemption. Now, I do believe our planning and zoning administrator did have a comment as to one of the questions presented by the general public related to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I would recognize her at this.
I believe both myself and the first selectman had a chance to talk to Chairman O'Reilly, who did take had no exception, took no exception to what is being proposed tonight. However, we did not formally go in front of the entire Planning and Zoning Commission to get a person-by-person comment related to it. They were given information in one of their take-home packets because again, this was on a different agenda previously and things of that nature. So the timeline has been a little different than we had originally anticipated. There has been some informal discussion, but no formal discussion at a meeting.
Thank you very much. I will ask a couple clarifying questions presented at the public hearing that I would like additional information on, if that would be possible. Mr. Town Attorney, there was some discussion on potential piecemeal or individual regulation exemptions. Do you have an opinion as to that process?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The 8-2E is an all or nothing proposition, so it requires town exempt its municipal property from all regulations, and that statute does not give this body the authority to piecemeal in any fashion certain provisions of its regulations.
Thank you very much. Now, as for the I believe you addressed this during the public hearing, but 824 does create a limitation on the town in how it changes and makes alterations to municipal owned property. Is that right?
Yeah, 824 specifically, just so everybody's clear on 824, just give you a moment. 824 provides that no municipal agency or legislative body shall locate, accept, abandon, widen, narrow, extend any street, bridge, parkway, or other public way, locate, relocate, substantially improve, acquire land for, abandon, sell, or lease any airport, park, playground, school, or other municipally owned property or public building, which is the general catch-all that typically this body's faced with. Locate or extend any public housing development, redevelopment, or urban renewal project, or locate or extend public utilities and terminals for water, sewerage, light power, transit, and other purposes, until such a proposal for such action has been referred to the commission, meaning Planning and Zoning Commission, for a report.
Thank you. And as for other methods of achieving some of these efficiencies, including going for a variance in front of the ZBA or any other process, the Planning and Zoning Administrator brought up a potential issue with that is creating precedent for potential commercial abuse. Is that your understanding of the concerns that might be created?
Yes. So with respect to, and there was also a question, if I just might delve into it, you know, what project kind of caused this to come to light? The town is close to finishing its process with respect to the approval relative to the St. Jude project. So the St. Jude project, the acquisition of the St. Jude property, which is adjacent to the town's property here at Town Hall and the library as well, is the project that kind of brought this into narrow scope in discussions with planning, zoning, land use, and Ms. Gallagher. And that project, for the record, all necessary variances have been obtained for that project through ZBA. And so when I said that, the reason why this was brought forward is because we've been able to understand that process. It's a fairly significant acquisition for the town. It borders a Route 111 and the town-owned property as it is, and it will be remaining borders will be St. Jude itself with respect to that property. Notwithstanding those neighbors, there were still significant hurdles that the town had to, go through in order to, fully accomplish what the town needs to do with respect to the intent of that project, consummating the project that was approved and considered by this body. And so, going through that project, like I said, this avenue is not the only avenue that this avenue is not necessary for that project to be completed. And however, it would provide at this juncture and would have provided retrospectively, would have provided the best opportunity for the town moving forward based upon the location of the property, the prior development of the property, and what the town is intending to do with that property, which is simply reuse it as a community center. And so with respect to what the town would have to do, should it be required to file its own subdivision regulations, what it certainly can do, would A, make that project A, much more costly, and B, would also make that project subject to precedent that could very well be binding upon this town with respect to civil development moving forward. And it certainly is not something that we're looking to accomplish. We don't want to, in any way, shape, or form, present anything to the Planning and Zoning Commission that would affect their future decisions, both voluntarily or involuntarily. And this project just brought it kind of into narrow scope, as I said. And so I am concerned about precedent going other avenues. I am concerned about the manner in which we have to accomplish what we want to accomplish, and it certainly would, could cause delays that I don't think are in the town's best interest. It's certainly going to cost more money, which is not in the town's best interest. For example, if we are compelled to follow our own subdivision regulations with respect to St. Jude, we would have to comply with the open space requirement within the planning and zoning regulations, subdivision regulations, which there's not enough property there because it's already developed property to comply with the open space regulations. And the alternative to that would be a fee in lieu of open space, which is based upon the total value of that parcel as a whole, which is a significant number and a significant process to get an accurate number. And I don't think it was, anybody's intention to compel the town with respect to a project like that to follow its own regulations. And so I think it's a great example for this body to look at. And precedent is a very big concern for myself and land use, and I think we're aligned in that.
Thank you. So there were some comments about I think the growth of the town and the development of the town, at least by private property owners. In no way does exempting municipal property impact current or future development on private property.
That's correct.
As far as the 824 referral and other options, the public can have participation at planning zoning meetings as well as at council. Is that your understanding, to be able to voice any concerns that they may have?
That's correct.
Okay. And then additionally, any expenditure on building on any municipal property would have to be approved in the town's budget, which would have to go through town council, the board of finance, and then referendum. Is that right?
That's correct.
and ultimately also potentially a town meeting if bonding or land acquisition or any of the other factors were necessary. Is that right?
That's correct. And that also, that process also would not be usurped or affected in any way by the adoption of, or the passing of this resolution.
Thank you very much. All right, now I will move over to anyone else who has discussion. I'll go down the line. Councilmember Persico.
Yes, thank you. I have some questions. I had been concerned about long-term with this resolution, so I just wanted to clarify that what we are looking at tonight, it would end June 30th, 2025. Correct?
Technically July 1st. It would include June 30th, but yes, as I've made the motion, yes.
So just over a year. And the benefit of that would be that this would assist the St. Jude progressing.
That would be, in my understanding, one of, yeah.
Okay. And then also, Mr. Rooney, were you able to find a list of our municipal properties, how many there are, what they include?
No, we didn't. I didn't put together a list of municipal properties. You did ask for that, but in the heat of the moment, trying to gather information for this body, that slipped my mind. I apologize for that, but I will work on it for you tomorrow. I'll have it to you by the end of the week.
I'm curious because then it does include like Web Mountain, correct? I mean, not just schools and stuff, but does it include Web Mountain and?
Well, so when you get into specifics on property, I would defer to the town attorney's interpretation of this, but there are other regulations and deed restrictions and other things that kind of restrict our ability outside of the planning zoning regulations to make changes to them.
Okay.
So if something is deemed open space, if it's deed restricted, we can't use it for anything else, or grant restricted. If we use money for that and we're not allowed to change the use, it would remain that use. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that's correct. And to use your example, any property that is deemed open space as defined by the state of Connecticut wouldn't be subject to development that would be affected by this.
And the example with the EMS with their signage, would there be an opportunity? So say we do pass this and they do want this sign. Is there an opportunity for, neighbors, if the sign has lights on it, if it bothers the neighbors at night, is there any opportunity for those people to come forward and say, hey, we do have concerns about this? Or would we be able to just put up the sign and essentially not worry about what the neighbors think at that point?
If you were to pass this, any development that would otherwise be, any development, the process would be administrative in nature.
Right. So they wouldn't be able to come.
It would not be a public hearing.
Right.
Per se.
Okay. So no opportunity for them to say, hey, those lights are going to bother me in the evening and voice their concerns. Correct.
I can't comment on, again, I'm giving you a legal opinion based upon what this exemption would provide, but I cannot imagine, I'm not going to speak for Ms. Gallagher, but I cannot imagine that our town land use department would not follow very simple, courteous protocols to inform neighbors of anything that was happening of significance with respect to town-owned properties. And again, I think, as I said in L&A, all of us, well, all of you are elected by the citizens and constituents of this town, and certainly the municipal employees serve the citizens of this town, the businesses of this town. So I don't think it's anybody's intention to do anything in any way, shape, or form that's going to cause more of a stir than it would have if they had to go through that process. But again, I can't speak for the town, but I know that that was part of our discussion in land use and that would be part of the protocol. But that's not part of the resolution to be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion?
No.
Councilmember Kohut.
Thank you. So just to be clear, this question did come up a couple of times with public comment, and I think to be clear for those who are listening and who are present, should we approve the full exemption for this period of time, citizens have no recourse in the event they are aggrieved. Is that correct?
With respect to what aspect of it?
Well, let's just go back to the simple signage thing, and this is a very simple example. I just want to make that clear. As Councilwoman Persico pointed out, if there is a lighting issue that for whatever reason is detrimental to one of the neighbors, because we have no restriction now with the removal, with the exemption factor. Not that I don't want EMS to be able to advertise their stuff, I do. So a resident who's finds that that light is shining in their window has zero ability for recourse if they are aggrieved in any fashion. And again, very simple example.
I disagree. I don't know what your definition of recourse is, but the citizen would have the same recourse they would have if they were aggrieved by something that had passed a planning and zoning commission. Their recourse would be to inform the town that the town has a certain use that is causing a nuisance to them. So it doesn't alleviate a property owner's ability to inform the town of the nuisance and beyond, should they think that it is in any way infringing upon their rights within that property. So I don't agree that they have no recourse. I think if you're asking me whether or not they have the ability to attend a hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission, the answer is no, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And that is exactly my point. So they would not have the opportunity to object in the first place, to provide information as to why it was inappropriate. They would have no ability to inform a decision regarding that particular use.
I don't agree with that.
And what would their ability be to prevent that signage, for example, from being placed once a full exemption is granted?
I don't know what you mean by ability, but they can render the same complaints to administration and land use than they could to the planning and zoning. If you're talking about the right to file a lawsuit as an aggrieved party to a decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission, they would not have that right.
Correct.
Other than that right, they have every other right.
So they can complain, and that's about as far as it goes.
They will complain, and the town would assumedly have an obligation to respond to that complaint.
So my second question is, Mr. Ambrosi, I believe, raised the question of the difference between a partial exemption and a full exemption. Would you care to enlighten us?
I just answered that. The statute requires full exemption.
Statute does require that. That was my understanding of the statute as well. All right. And is there, this question came up a couple of times, I believe, why the Planning and Zoning Commission, granted we are the legislative organization or legislative body, but why was the opinion of the Planning and Zoning Commission not solicited as opposed to the chair, simply the chair?
If you're asking me that question, I followed the statute.
Okay. And additionally, so the exemption then would also include any properties that would be additionally purchased subsequent to the granting of such an exemption, correct?
During the duration of the exemption, correct.
And it's my understanding that the notion of maintaining the time frame to this just over 1 year period is to give us the opportunity to review how this administration handles it within that year. Is that fair to say?
I did not propose that language, so you're asking the wrong person.
Okay. Who would I ask that question? If not you?
Well, it was my motion,
All right.
Member Kohut.
Thank
So instead of having this go off in perpetuity, a 1 year sunset clause, I believe, would be more appropriate for this, as this is something we had not done before. So
Correct.
I believe that would be an appropriate period of time for
a review under this administration as opposed to, and that's the problem, is administrations change, behaviors change, use changes, opinions change. So the blanket exemption can foreseeably become problematic going forward. Granted, I believe you used Trumbull as an example. I believe that in my review, a total of, memory serves, and I could be a little high on this number, 28 towns that had exempted fully, most of which were differently situated towns than we are, Trumbull being one of the closest. And they also had a review process, even though there was a blanket exemption. So my concern with the exemption being a full exemption, even for a period of time, is the inability of the public to have any recourse. Number one, be able to actually voice an opinion that would have an effect, or to study anything that the town is planning on doing, short of something major. And if we do have changes going forward, including the acquisition of new properties that do not also include deed restrictions or other restrictions, the ability to use that property in any way that the town at any time sees fit, and that would be the administration of the town, is a little concerning to me. And I gather to some of those who have spoken this evening.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just asked, I have some comments, but I'd like to reserve comment. I'm curious as to if other council members have comment, because as I'd like to hear what other people think about this.
Keep the line going.
Well, why don't we just go down the line?
All right, then
I think it just makes more sense.
then I am also reserving the ability to respond as well. So I understand the process behind this. I understand the intent behind this. I just think we're doing it backwards. I think passing this exemption, a complete blanket exemption with a sunset period for the purposes of review, is the wrong way to do it. We have matters in place. I don't agree with the variance issue being as big of an issue when it comes to precedent, because it depends on why the variance is granted. If the variance is being granted because of the fact that this is a municipal property and the planning and zoning feels that the municipal property should be exempt from this, and that is why the variance is granted, it doesn't create a precedent that is harmful when it comes to private property. I think what's needed in order for us to consider this is time and a committee. I think this should be a committee that consists of members of the public, members of the council, and members of our planning and zoning commission, as well as members of our planning and zoning department. And that committee should be able to discuss what is the best path forward for the town, whether it is this blanket exemption here, whether it is partial exemptions through our zoning regulations as to specific regulations that the town would be exempt to, which is what our town attorney mentioned a lot of surrounding towns have done, or whether it's something more similar to the town of Plainville. I did a lot of research on this coming into this meeting. And the town of Plainville has a blanket exemption, but it's not a blanket exemption through 8.2. Instead, they did in their actual regulations a blanket exemption that exempts the town from zoning regulations. However, if the town is planning on a conforming property or zoning use, that would have to come before the town council. So it takes the planning and zoning department out of it. It takes the regulations out, but the town council at least needs to be made aware of it, which allows the public a chance to comment, and as well as allows the legislative body a checks and balance over those uses. Further, 824 is a good protection, but it's not a perfect protection. There are a lot of things that could happen that wouldn't trigger an 824 review, such as if there was municipal property that was already built out, already being used, and then the town decided to purely change the use. They decided to use that building for a completely different use. They didn't build, it's not building out, it's not an improvement, they're just changing the use, but it's not in a part of the town that's zoned for that. They could do that without triggering an 824, and there would be no review from the town. I just don't think we're at the point that we can or should be voting on this. I'm not saying I'm firmly against exempting municipal property. I think we just need, one, more information, And two, a proper time frame for different members of the town throughout the government as well as the community to be able to talk and decide which is the best path forward. And until that time, variances would be the way to go on a case-by-case basis rather than a broad and blanket exemption while we make those decisions.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? All right.
Going down the line, right?
Yeah.
Waiting for my
Yeah,
turn.
whoever, if you indicate you want to talk, go ahead.
You need to go in it or?
I'm just sitting here,
Okay.
fine, not going anyplace.
Mr. Town Attorney, with, excuse me, with regards to the 15-month period for the first period of possibly implementing this, I did take note that you had mentioned that at the end of said period, that there is no evergreen clause that is in place, meaning that any lack of action from this body does not trigger or automatically trigger a renewal of this proposal.
Correct.
So this body is by nature of the wording of this proposal is forced to review this in its totality on a yearly basis. I'm assuming with 15 months of this potentially being put in place, that we all would have had quite a bit of feedback from the public, from the various departments in town, and other interested parties that might have an interest in this proposal, on which way to either A, vote to remove it, vote to improve it, or just just simply tweak it or address those concerns, or in some cases, because we don't know the outcome of what it would look like 15 months out as far as the reaction from the town, based on the actions of the town, from the town residents, on what that feedback would be. It actually, could be positive in some regards. I also understand that all the projects and developments that the town would be seeking the exemption with regards to the P and Z would be required to go before this body. Do I have that accurately understood?
I think it's on a case-by-case basis. I don't think projects don't have to go before this body per se.
How would a case-by-case basis be raised to the level of this body being called into review or to weigh in on it?
I think this body would only weigh in on projects should there be a necessity for financing, bonding, charter required provisions relative to alienation of or acquisition of property.
Okay. And with regards to, the commentary from Chairman O'Reilly, basically, I understand that he had not raised any objections. I don't know if he had gone into any further dialogue with you with regards to his opinion on that, if that's anything you can share.
He is supportive and felt that it was appropriate from his perspective based upon his tenure in his position as chairman and a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And the length of his tenure, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's got at least, 6 years in or more, or
More than that.
probably more than that. Okay. With the efficiency mechanism that we were discussing earlier, I know this is probably, nearly impossible question to answer, but is there any way to evaluate, at least on an approximate level here, on what types of savings that this proposal, if implemented here this evening, would be given to the town and hence the taxpayers?
Monetarily or time-wise?
Well, both, I guess, but mainly I was thinking monetarily.
Well, as I said, a lot of the work with respect to the current project has already been done. So there will be a savings be based upon change in the nature. But this project is fairly, the St. Jude project is fairly at the precipice. But the open space fee that would be associated with this project would be substantial. I don't know the exact number, Ms. Gallagher might know the number, but I believe it was
It's somewhere around $1 million.
$1 million would be required to be deposited from essentially the town's left pocket into its right open space pocket, which was certainly, I don't think anybody's intention with respect to that. So that's a cost savings right there. In addition, there would be some cost savings with respect to drafting and the like. Time savings, without question. There would be time savings with respect to getting the project complete. Again, it's near the precipice, but I would say at this point, months of time savings would be my estimation. And again, to get that project moving forward. But again, I think if this is something that this body's looking at with respect to efficiency, it would have and could have and will in the future save significant time and expense for projects like this. And they're rare, they're few and far between, but as you know, from sitting on this body, but without question, they're savings.
With regards to, saving months on various projects and such, to your knowledge, are there any grants, either on the state or the federal side that are tied into, how quickly or is there a time limit? Is there something attached to receiving those funds based on the expediency of the process that we have to be able to present before accepting or receiving said grants?
Every grant that I've been associated with, including any grants that may be applicable to this project, require shovel-ready projects, which means in this case, we're not constructing substantially anything by, creating a new development, but we would have completed all the necessary underlying conditions precedent to have this be a viable municipal project as it's contemplated. So there would be no grants available for this project, potentially if we don't get it done sooner rather than later. But I'll defer to the first selectman on his conversations and communications regarding any possible opportunity there.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, that the grant process with regards to receiving monies for, the St. Jude's project, or for that matter, future projects that may come up as a result of the town's ability to move forward on those, are directly affected or limited by a time frame.
Correct.
And said time frame is typically in weeks, months, years. How do we measure that? That sort of Damocles, as they say.
The delay or the time frame associated with the.
Well, if we're looking at receiving, grants and outside money, typically, what is that time limit, that those parameters that we have to meet in order to execute that grant funding to us would be?
Those windows close very fast. On this project, I would say, we want to get this project going as quickly as possible so that we can utilize it for what its intended use was, which is at the very least been to use it over the winter months to expand our Parks and Rec opportunities. There's significant work that has to get done with the wall and all that. So, obviously we want to get this, we're on schedule we're pretty much on schedule with this project right now, but without question, I do think any delay could risk the receiving of potential grants associated with this project.
And you had just mentioned here a few moments ago, shovel-ready projects. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more with regards to how this proposal would impact the shovel-ready project scenario that you've discussed, and how that might impact again, securing any monies that may be attached to it, either in the lines of grants or investment or a combination of the two.
In order to apply for even any grants, technically, we'd have to be the owner of this project. And have an understanding of the costs associated, the scope of work for this project. We can't do any of that without getting to that point, and this will help us get to that. But again, I also want to mention along these lines is, I think what's being discounted here is the precedent that, you know, again, the town's going to be, the planning and zoning would be, this body wouldn't be weighing in on any of these. This body wouldn't be weighing in this process at all. It'd be planning and zoning weighing in, and the precedent that would be established by the direction the town chooses to go in moving forward with respect to the financial parameters that would be required, which in a way indirectly would involve town council and board of finance and the finance department and the selectmen to determine where that extra $1 million wants to come from if you want to follow that process, or you know, presenting the project in another fashion to the planning and zoning commission that would compel them to make decisions that could cause precedent that I don't think is in the best interest of this town at this time.
So with the exception of the original exemption, planning and zoning would be driving this car to a large degree. That wouldn't change.
Correct.
So nothing other than the initial exemptions, issues and procedures that you've outlined would supersede anything that the planning and zoning board would still have authority over.
With respect, they wouldn't have authority with respect to this project any longer, but they would have authority with respect to all other projects as long as it was not municipally owned. Yes.
All right. I heard Councilman Mauer discuss this 824 review. You'll have to excuse me. I missed the hours of L&A and any other discussions that might have been made on this topic leading up to this session tonight. Can you fill me in a little more with regards to the 824 process and, you know, what that is, you know, what the review process entails and maybe if possible to address some of the concerns that have been expressed here tonight as far as circumventing that 824 review process.
Yeah, what you're considering tonight would not circumvent 824. And as you know, this project, St. Jude project, amongst many other projects that we've considered, all of which fell within 824, which is essentially generally has to do with the location or abandonment of streets, bridges, and parkways, or improvements that are made to municipally owned properties, including utilities, have to be referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review, which they review at a hearing, and it's open to public comment. So this project did go through that process already, and they did vote affirmatively for the project moving forward.
Okay. And, you know, like so many other projects and issues and such that have come before us, you know, over the years, you know, it is not without, you know, a lot of consideration and stress in some instances. You know, legislating and being a part of the legislative process is not easy, probably not supposed to be easy. No matter what it is that we do or what direction we go in, not necessarily with this specific proposal, but just about any other proposal and such that we've considered over the years. It's impossible to not necessarily appease, but, you know, make all parties completely happy with being able to execute those proposals. So with that being said, I'm ready to yield the floor to my next colleague.
Thank you. Donaldin, anything?
No, I yield the floor to them.
All right.
John had covered a couple of my questions, so.
Councilmember Juba, anything?
Thank you. Yeah, few things. First, I just want to thank the members of the public that came out tonight, the members that signed in. Many times it's the people in this like 30-foot radius, you know, by ourselves. So I appreciate everyone coming out and giving their well thought out concerns. Going back to Councilwoman Persico's question and Councilwoman Kohut's discussion with you, Attorney Lito, just to be clear, so if this is passed, there is no remedy for a citizen to come in and complain that the town violated the zoning regulations. But from what I think I heard you say, they would still have whatever other civil remedies would be open to them. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there are other ways if, let's say, someone builds a sign with the brightness of the sun on a piece of municipal property, there, in all likelihood, is another civil remedy that could be pursued. We had heard from Ms. Gallagher that doing this the way that is being proposed would save the town approximately $1 million. And you may not know the answer to this question, but I think it's just a logical question. If we didn't do it this way, where's that $1 million going to come from? It's going to come from taxing people, the citizens.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that. We would be faced with decisions. There are other ways to do that. There are many ways to skin the cat, as they say. And again, with respect to this project, as many projects, and again, in discussions that I had with other towns, these are the issues that come up frequently, which caused towns to have the exemptions, that we're discussing for this exact purpose. So, I don't know where the money would come from. And certainly, I don't think that was ever intended to apply to municipal projects. I don't think it was ever intended or contemplated that the town should be taking taxpayer dollars and contributing it to its open space fund. I don't think that was ever contemplated as something that the town will be governed by. But again, the history of this town and the way it's been done, we're not a town that has large municipal development. So it's probably an issue of first impression, I can imagine, in that regard. Again, the precedent that would be set, I think, was the most concerning to me. And this seems like the most logical, in my opinion, logical thing to do.
Is it fair to say that following the regs as they are now, without doing this exemption, there would be approximately $1 million that would have to be found or come up with somehow?
Potentially, yes.
Thank you. So this has a sunset clause of June 30th of 25. Assuming that the project at St. Jude's takes some period of time, let's say for whatever reason, it doesn't start until, I know this is not the plan, but just for argument's sake, let's say that the work on doing the building doesn't start till June 29th of 25, one day before. Can we still let this sunset clause happen and then the work would still be legal? Or does this exemption need to stay open for the entire period that the work is being done? Or like, let's say you do the first step in rehabbing the building or whatever, as long as it's before June 30th, we're good and we don't have to keep renewing it.
Yeah, I mean, the work that's being contemplated will be completed within months. So that's not an issue, but
Okay.
it would have to be, whatever would be proposed would have to be applicable to the exemption at that time.
Okay, because my intention is not to have this go on forever. At least that's just my opinion. I think for this project, that's what I think is pertinent. There was some mention about going through planning and zoning. From my reading of the statute, CGS 8-2 parentheses 10 parentheses E, it's the legislative body's task, which is town council. It does not mention planning and zoning. Do you agree with my reading of that?
Right.
Thank you. And clearly, because this statute was implemented by the state legislature recognized that there are times towns need to do this. Is that a fair statement? Okay. And lastly, not a question. I just think that in the totality of the circumstances, what this project will bring to the citizens, it would appear to me that it's in the town's best interest.
Thank you, Councilmember Duva. Councilmember Reed, do you have any discussion at this time?
Yeah, I've got a few, and I think a lot of them have been answered and asked by our co-counsel folks. I think Mr. Lito, you did answer a number of them. I just want, for my own clarification, I want to make sure I'm hearing these right. It's not because I'm not there physically that I'm not understanding it, but there is a lot of conversation on this. It's all over the place. I applaud all of us we're trying to figure out how to categorize this and bucket it into logical chunks so we understand it. But so therefore, please excuse my kind of what's going to be all over the place when I'm about to go through this list. I just want to make sure for my own clarification and probably the council's, there is no opportunity to do this a one-off exception for St. Jude's, right? Whatever legislative or contractual or legal way, there's no way to accomplish this without doing this longer term thing. Is that correct?
There's no way to accomplish it pursuant to this statute. You certainly could accomplish it pursuant to changes to the zoning regulations by text amendments to the zoning regulations themselves.
And what would be what if we're all pursuing $1 million here in savings, rallying up council, rallying up the first selectman's office, going to P&Z and them being heard as a committee, is that something that's been explored at all? Would they be willing to do that? What are we talking about? I mean, I've been around with changes of zoning regulations before. They could be very simple. They can be very complex. Is there a mechanism or template that other towns have done that we could plug in, get this passed so you could move on to St. Jude's? And this could be discussed in, more holistically and in totality later on.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, it could be discussed later on. If at any point we feel that it's more appropriate to, or even during the pendency of the exemption, it seemed like it would be a moot discussion to discuss specific exemptions within the text of the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations while the town is exempt, but you could use the period of exemption to explore more detailed and pointed exemptions within those documents themselves while this exemption is in this sunset phase.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle, right? I'm certainly not advocating that. I'm not saying it's the right or best thing to do or the worst thing to do. But maybe Mr. Rooney, you might be able to, as the chair allows, I'm sure you're going to have stuff to say. I'm knowing you. I think you're probably itching to talk. So maybe that's something you could take a note on, and maybe that's something you might be able to entertain addressing. I mean, look, I am. When this first was brought to me a couple of weeks ago, at least me personally, I did a little research as well. A lot of these towns have had this exact thing for a very long time. And they're working through. I actually appreciated tonight coming into my subcommittee, the L&A subcommittee, that there was an expiry. So I do appreciate that concept, that condition. Is there any reason, and I'm going to have a follow-up question to this, is there any reason this can't be like a 6-month? Is that kind of being a little weaselly? Is because of the state's condition? It looks like we're only trying to get this for St. Jude's. Talk me through that. Is that the reason for this? It's not 6 months, is what I mean.
I didn't propose the duration, but I think you're accurate in. I don't think the intent of the statute was to use the statute to exempt all regulations for one specific project and purpose. I don't think that was the intention, which is why I think the statute requires you to exempt all municipal property as opposed to select municipal property. Because if you wanted to do it with respect to select municipal property or select purpose, the provision, the way to do that would be to amend the zoning regulations. Which could
Yeah, and I agreed. I mean, it's a balance between the two. Would we be jurisdictionally, I would say legislatively, from a regulation perspective and legally afforded the opportunity to make this 6 months and minimize the the impact of other development until we get our heads wrapped around this a little better. I don't want to debate whether or not an exception is better and we go to P and Z and, change regulations and procedures over there. I'm more interested in specifically this question. Is it illegal for us to propose that and create an expiry date of 6 months?
I don't believe it's illegal, but the irony is none of the towns my research didn't reveal any towns have any type of time limitation on their exemption.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
The other thing, if the concern is, and again, throwing this out there, but if the concern is that, planning and zoning is not weighing in on this, you could amend the exemption to say that, planning and zoning has to approve the site development plan as a condition of the exemption. There are towns that have that included. So you could add that if that's the concern.
Okay, you may have just Mr. Lito, you just completely frigged my whole list here, man. All right. Let's go down that rabbit hole. Does that mean it's an agenda item on their committee meetings every other Thursday?
I don't control their agenda, so I don't know if it's an agenda item, but again, you're exempting the town from having to follow the requirements, but the site development plan itself, for instance, the St. Jude project as a whole, or it could be a site development, using the term loosely, for the sign that we discussed. Would have to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission as a condition precedent to approval.
Okay, so that's interesting. So whether it's a gentleman and ladies agreement or it's a legislative process between the two boards, commissions, I would assume they would make that an agenda item. They do with filling an excavation, they do it for site plan, they do it for a lot of things, right? Without even getting into what ZBA operates as. So that's the first time I'm hearing it. If that was brought up before, I apologize. I would say, Jonathan, Mr. Chair, I would, if that's the case and that is allowed, and site plan is construed as any of those things, that's the silver bullet. Because I'm concerned with, I'm listening to this. I've got two developments. I rarely make council about me. I really do. I think I've been on council almost 10 years now, and I don't think I've made it about me once. But I'm about to. I've got two plans. I've got two major developments happening around me, and one I just found out about through the Monroe Sun is a storage facility, and I went, what? I mean, I didn't even know about it. And if I want, I have the opportunity to go to planning and zoning. I do not call the first selectman privately on those matters. I think, Mr. Rooney, you know that. None of us abuse our positions in town. If I am going to have a question and answer session, if I want to understand what's going on in this town, I will use the procedures and the legislative and the committee processes we have at our disposal. So, I mean, if I'm thinking of this the same way, hopefully everybody else is, and we make this a part of this process, because we should be able to run our town the way we want to run our town, within the requirements, within the limitations and the conditions and the constraints of what the state operates, how the state operates. I can't imagine the state would stop us for, hey guys, if you want your P and Z to approve a site hearing on this or a site plan on this, so be it. It's exempting you from different things, but again, to me, that's solving two matters. I want to make sure P and Z is doing their job, and that that this is what they volunteer to do, and our P and Z in town hall works with them, and two, the citizens have the ability somehow to go up and voice concern at a public hearing or at a public meeting. In fact, if that was not thrown out, I was going to say, could we make this a process in this legislative condition that says, you know what, then council's hearing these things for a year and a half, right? So I wouldn't mind exploring that more. As I said, Frank, you kind of threw my list here. I just have some more just general statements. look, there are restrictions to this thing. This is not, I'm reading, I'm talking to people in town. I'm hearing some of the comments. It's not a blanket thing across the board. There are a lot of exceptions to this process that just doesn't apply to. So I was happy to hear that tonight. And Frank, I do applaud you. You're very specific about that. You have the data that backs that up. That's very clear. I do appreciate the efficiencies. We just heard from a gentleman tonight, although efficiencies are important, they're not the only thing that's important. I think people's statement and say and opinion and being able to ask questions instead of going in, knocking on the first selectman's door and saying, what the heck are you doing over on X road, right? That's not how things should work. Although I know, Mr. Selectman, your door is always open. I also appreciate, I think we talked ad nauseum tonight. There are, even without what I just heard on this potential addition of a legislative process over to P&Z so the citizens can be heard, there's a lot of check and balances still in this. This is not a carte blanche. First selectman raises an idea, a paper goes across a desk and all of a sudden someone's building a 50-story building, on Hammertown Road. That's not how this works. I have to admit, when I first heard this, I went, wait a minute, how does this process work? So I am very impressed and also appreciative of the many checks and balances that go into this. I appreciate also you guys speaking to the P&Z chair, but again, Mr. Lito, you in a positive way, hopefully you threw my list here, so maybe we can explore this thing, and then that can be something that P&Z is informed of in the future if that's makes sense, and it still allows us to in the using St. Jude save the 800,000 or the million, and then in the sign conditions someone's putting up, as one of our brothers on council tonight said, a sign that is as bright as the sun gives them the opportunity to, that sounds good. How many more projects then, if 6 months, and I hear you, Mr. Lito, we can go round and around on, do you do an exception or you do 6 months? The irony is well, basically that's just an exception, just one big one just for 6 months on a couple of projects. How many projects do we actually think? We have strategic committee, we've got the capital projects going on right now. How many do we actually feel this is going to impact till July? 5, 10, 1?
I have no idea. I can't predict the future. I don't know. I mean, municipal development, I would say 1. Sounds like 2.
We have the animal shelter too.
There you go, 3.
Yeah, so we're talking, I mean, again, any one of those could be heavily impactful, impact the people in town directly. I mean, I get that. So I don't want anybody going back and listening to this recording saying, oh, Councilman Reed thinks only because there's 2 or 3 that's not, it could be, right? I'm happy I'm not hearing 10, 15, we're constantly, we're applying this exception, so that does make it a little more palatable. But so since I was the last council member to speak, because I suffer because I am not there, which is fine. I'll bring up the back end on this. Jonathan, can we open this conversation up to explore that thing that Mr. Lito said about P&Z hearing a site plan, and is that truly a magic bullet for
Right.
P&Z and citizens?
So Kevin, I think at this time it's appropriate to call for a recess. We'll have another opportunity for discussion after that recess as we get some additional answers. So I'm going to put council in recess. It's 9:09 p.m. We're going to recess for a period of time. We will reconvene this evening though. All right, good evening, everyone. It is 9:37. We're out of recess this evening. Councilmember Reed was the last to speak, so I'm going to turn it over to First Selectman Terry Rooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Councilman Reed said earlier that I've been dying to speak, and I don't think he's wrong about that. First off, I just want to say I'm very proud of this council. I'm very proud of LNA, and I'm happy to see that everybody on this dais is doing what the town would want them to do for them. The citizens of this town elect us to preserve their thoughts and vet their concerns, and that's exactly what we're doing today. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud that it's being done in a kind manner. So thank you to everyone on the dais for expressing their concerns. I think this exercise is very good, and I said it while the recording was off, but I think I like to say it while the recording is on, that, vetting these situations and speaking the way we have is good, and especially it's good exercise for new council people to understand how this system works. So thank you. I want to kind of go back a few weeks ago to when this became a consideration. I walk these town halls, I talk to directors every day. And we speak about their concerns and how my office can help them, do their jobs better and more efficiently. That's my job in the leadership role. And on many occasions, things came out that, well, the EMS sign was one of them. There's a situation with the animal shelter that we got a steep grant for. There's some things there. And then with St. Jude's. So in those considerations, I know you guys aren't in town hall every day. I am. So when you get this paperwork here, you look at it kind of in a snapshot. I know how it evolved. And this decision evolved because of the EMS situation, because of the animal control needing some work there, and St. Jude's. But I think primarily the one thing why this kind of came about was St. Jude's going through this subdivision and knowing we have to divide it to obtain the property. We ran into the situation of open space. And Kathleen came to me with the conversation does the town have to abide by its own planning and zoning regulation in regards to open space? And my answer was, well, yeah, but how does that impact the project? Well, it was, we either have to give a portion of land to open space, or there's a monetary value. And my belief is that if we gave the open land, then we have to now readjust all the planning and all the setbacks, and septic and things like that may or may not work. I'm not going to sit here and say that it won't work, but there were concerns with that. Because you'd have to go back to the engineer and get new plans, and there's a cost that comes with every plan that occurs. And the other option was to pay the open space fund a dollar amount. And when I asked what that dollar amount would be based on the current value of that property, it was in the area of $1 million. So at that point, we're consulting with P&Z, the economic development director, everybody who's involved in this project. This was brought to my attention. This statute, this Connecticut general statute. I was personally a little uneasy with it at first, but as I understood it and started to look at what we could possibly do with it, it was just minor little things. We could fix that sign. We could do a few things that would make projects go a little bit easier. And that's why I agreed to put it forward. It was a collective effort. And the other thing that was really pressing for me, which I don't really like to divulge, but in the spirit of transparency, I have a commitment from bond counsel for a significant, large sum of money to go into this community center. Now it's verbal, and if we don't close on this, we could be losing in the area of $750,000 to go towards this project. So it would, in essence, be, $1 million to open space, maybe another 750 lost because we need to have this project closed to get that money. And that's through the help of Tony Scott. And we don't know if we miss that window and go for next year if we're actually going to have the opportunity to get that again. So the way I see this, it is really just beneficial to do it this way for at least that one property, because now our town doesn't have to take, as the attorney said before, money out of one pocket and put it in the other, which is in the tune of $1 million. And we don't run the risk of losing possible, support from bond counsel, because we will have closed in a timely fashion. So that's really the reason why this happened, the EMS, the animal shelter, and the St. Jude's project. So in the spirit of transparency, I wanted everybody here on that council to know why this was done. I feel that there were a couple situations where it was painted as the first selectman. It was almost like a power grab. That's not what it was at all. This was so the community could save that $1 million for open space. And it was also so I could try to obtain that bond for the community center. So that being said, I don't have anything else. You know the whole story, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rooney. There was some discussion prior to our recess on various questions regarding planning and zoning, site development plan, adding that to any type of motion. Mr. Town Attorney, did you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, if this body is inclined to have me look into further qualifications of the proposed resolution, then I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it this evening, I can tell you that. So I want more time to do some research, but and I can do it. But I want to make sure if there's going to be if there's an inclination to add certain provisions to it, then I would want the opportunity to do a comprehensive research on it to make sure that whatever we're doing is orderly, understood, appropriate, not ambiguous, and the like. How much time that's going to take, I don't know. But I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it this evening.
Thank you very much. In light of that information, I'm going to withdraw my motion. Madam Vice Chair, do you withdraw your motion?
Yes.
Okay, so this matters.
Just one last sidebar here. Is there a reason to do any consensus tallying or no?
I think we're gonna get more information. All right, so the motion has been withdrawn, the second has been withdrawn.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I can just, in the efforts of doing that, which I truly appreciate, and I think that's the route that I would like to get that information. The two things that I would ask, one is of the town attorney about the specific information just mentioned. Can either planning and zoning or council be a threshold passing for non-conforming, and how a resolution like that would look, but also for input from our planning and zoning committee, whether it be on their agenda as an item, or if we invite them to our next meeting to discuss this item.
Planning and Zoning Commission.
The Planning and Zoning, correct? Yes, correct.
Thank you. I'm sure the town attorney will take note.
I can tell you my recommendation at this juncture, so as not to cause any further delay. My recommendation is town attorney, I'll consult with land use, but I think that this project should just move forward in the manner that we were preparing to move forward prior to my suggestion that we consider this, and let planning and zoning here consider it and figure out where to get $1 million from. That's what we're gonna have to do to get this project moving forward, and it's unfortunate. I can tell you it's unfortunate, and that's not the route I wanted to go for many, many reasons, and obviously many of the reasons I set forth this evening. But I don't think that's the way to go with this. But I think at this point we've already lost significant time in between the last meeting and this meeting trying to go this route. And if it's not this body's if it's not this body's direction that they want to go in, then like I said, it's not. The project can still move forward. It just has to move forward under different different parameters, which
Outside of the precedent issue, is there a reason why the town can't ask for a variance or any, on the open space?
can't be a variance. Can't be a variance on that. There's certain provisions, there's the way the law is situated and the way this application is presented, there's a number of ways it can be presented and we'll decide which way we think it's best to present it to the planning and zoning. But the way this, in my opinion, should have been done is through this exemption. I understand your concerns. I respect your concerns. Like I said, I'm not only a town attorney, but I'm a taxpayer. I've lived in this town since I was in fifth grade. So this town's important to me. I have a lot of trust in the administration in town. I have a lot of trust in this body. I have a lot of trust in the checks and balances you've heard from me in the last two meetings. I do believe that, this town has been and continues to be run by very good people that do very responsible and conscious things, including our administration, who most of the time don't live in town, especially with projects like this. So, it wasn't a concern for me. It's a concern for everybody here. And I, like I said, I agree with First Selectman Rooney that it was a great process for the newcomers. It's a good process for those that are familiar with this. And it's healthy debate, and that's great. And that's what government's all about. So I'm all for it. And I think, the message has been heard with respect to that. Again, from my perspective, timing is very important. And I do want to see this project moving forward quickly. And I do think adding the layers that we intend to add requires a significant research project that I don't think I want to be the guinea pig with respect to testing 8-2E with a bunch of fluff on the end of it. I do think that the intention of that statute was exemption or not. And whatever risks come with it, which have been considered this evening. And I don't think this town should be the guinea pig with respect to trying to pass a version of 8-2E that is something that could cause us more precedential harm than going the other route would be. So we have to find a way to do it or not. Maybe that's what happens with the project, but that's why I presented it. Again, I presented it for this reason. I do think that it was important to move this timely forward, efficiently forward, cost effective forward. I think it was a great project. This council's considered the project. They've approved the project. We've been working on this project for over a year, and at this point, I think it needs to move forward one way or the other. In the method that it I guess originally was intended to.
Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. We have two matters of new business this evening. Acceptance of the following donations that individually exceed $1,500. I move that the town council accept the following donation to Parks and Recreation, $3,000 from Newtown Savings Bank, Platinum Concert Sponsors. There's second. Second by Jason Mauer. Mr. First Selectman, do you have any statement?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just once again, thank you for the donations. Obviously, all of our operations in town use them. Anytime we can find money or anytime people donate money, it assists these organizations greatly. So thank you for the community's generosity as always.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor of accepting the donation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? No. Hearing none, passes 9-0. Moving on to B, resolution item 24-062, Madam Vice Chair.
I move that the town council adopt resolution 24-062. Resolved that Terrence P. Rooney, first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the town of Monroe the letter of commitment and any associated documents by and between the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency for the Budget Stabilization Program for Liability Automobile Property Coverage.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Jason Mauer. Mr. First Selectman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, CIRMA, provides the town with liability automobile property insurance coverage. Once again, CIRMA has offered to cap lap policy increases for 3 years. Kerma has agreed to cap subsequent rate increases at 3% for fiscal year 24-25, 25-26, and 26-27. For your consideration, I have attached a letter of commitment of budget stabilization program between Kerma, the town of Monroe, and the Monroe Board of Education, also with a letter of opinion from our town attorney.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting resolution 24-062, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 9-0. Moving on to second public participation. Is there any member of the public that would like to participate on any unfinished item this evening? The only unfinished item is item A of unfinished business. Ms. Aguilar, I believe that's you. Please unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted?
You're good.
Jennifer Aguilar, 32 Surrey Lane. I just wanted to say thank you for your consideration on withdrawing the motion to vote on this tonight and looking further into it. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to participate this evening? Please remember to unmute yourself. And it's unfinished business item A. Hearing none, saying none, I'm going to close second public participation. I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 9:54 p.m. I will note that to everyone that our next town council meeting is May 13th, which is a month. Everyone have a great night.